Hi there, thanks for joining me for this Ask Me Anything video. At the end I'm going to do a very quick recap of the takeover situation, so stay tuned for that. And if you have any more questions that you'd like to ask me for a future Ask Me Anything video, then just put them in the comments below. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first up, question from Peter Robson on Twitter. He says, best former Newcastle player to never score a goal for the club. I must admit, I wasn't expecting questions where I'd need to do a ton of research to answer, but I did have a quick look over on NUFC.com and I found 3 players who I genuinely liked, who I found out had never scored a goal for the club. So back in the early 90s when Keegan arrived, we had a defender called Brian Kilcline. He had lots of hair, really hairy defender. Killer Kilcline he was called. He only played 24 games for us, but he never scored a goal. And then jump forward sort of 10-15 years and we have Alan Smith, who I quite liked watching. I thought he was quite a decent player, but amazingly in 84 games he never scored a goal for Newcastle, so that took me by surprise when I found that out. My absolute favourite Newcastle player who's never scored a goal has to be Jonathan Woodgate. I just kind of wish he could have played for us a bit longer and he wasn't as injury prone. I think without doubt he was the best defender I've ever seen Newcastle have. And he played for us 36 times, never scored a goal. Okay, next question's from Ella. She says, who is your favourite current Newcastle player and favourite non-Newcastle player in the Premier League? Favourite player at the moment has to be Alan Saint-Maxim. Very exciting player and a difference maker. Favourite non-Newcastle player? Probably someone like Jordan Pickford. Always has a meltdown against us, doesn't he? Seriously, probably my favourite non-Newcastle player would be Aguero, I would say. I've always loved watching him. I think he's absolute a class act. I think he's a brilliant player, great finisher, and I think the Premier League is going to be a worse place when he leaves it. Next question from Mr. Kelly. Do you think the new owners should build a new training and academy complex? Without a doubt. I think the facilities need upgrading. Our potential new owners, if they do come in, they'll want to be bigger and better than Man City, and Man City are the ones who lead the way. I know that Liverpool have also just redeveloped Melwood into a state-of-the-art training centre and academy, and if we get these new backers in, it's an absolute no-brainer that this has to happen. They'll want and they'll need to improve our current facilities, which are by all accounts mediocre at best. Danny G, NUFC, start one, bench one, sell one, Dubravka, Krul and Harper. You've got to start Dubravka. I reckon he's probably the best keeper we've ever had. I think he's the best keeper I've ever seen us have. I would bench Krul. I always liked Krul, and I would sell Harper, to be honest. If I'm perfectly honest with you, I never actually rated Harper, even when it was him and Given. I never thought he was that great a keeper. He's a decent backup, but for me, yeah, Dubravka I'd play, Krul I would put on the bench, and Harper I would sell. Jonathan Young asks, do you follow any other sports teams? Yeah, I do. I follow the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL. In fairness, I just love the NFL in general. It's kind of my second favourite sport. I was lucky enough to actually go across to New York and watch the Seahawks play the Giants a couple of years back, and then the following day I travelled to Philadelphia with my friend, and we went and watched the Eagles play the Redskins. It was the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl, actually, and the atmosphere in Philly was just unbelievable, and one that I'd like to repeat. It was absolutely fantastic. Hunter NUFC, do you think Newcastle should provide scholarships to promote young talent a bit like in the USA? Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I think our system over here wouldn't quite work the same as the American system, but there's any way that Newcastle United can go forward and feed into the academy by getting youngsters through scholarships or any other way has to be something that the club looks at. Andrew Young says, do you think the clock should be stopped during VAR checks? Yes. I mean, there's so many issues with VAR, but one of them is, in my opinion, clock management. I actually believe that the clock should be controlled by an independent person, not the referee. A bit like in the NFL and other sports where I think Rugby League do it as well, where the timekeeper is not the referee. And I think that would make sense to stop the clock, especially when you've got a controversial decision that sometimes lasts 5, 6, 7 minutes, which is another thing VAR really need to sort out. I'll say that's far too long. But yeah, the clock needs stopping so that it just doesn't get ridiculous. And 100% Mag asks, the best player that I've ever met in person. There's a bit of a story on this one. My cousin was a mascot for Newcastle when they played Luton Town at Kenilworth Road sometime in the early 90s, probably about 1993. My family all had seats in the main stand, so we weren't sat with the away fans, with the Newcastle fans. But as the players, we were right next to the tunnel, and as the players ran out, and I got to meet quite a lot of them, including John Beresford, our left back at the time, who for some reason had his hair shaved. And as he walked past, embarrassingly, I said to him, "I love your hair, John." And my uncle has never let me live that down. He always takes the mick out of me for saying that to John Beresford. Anyway, that isn't actually my answer, because a short while later, after the players had gone out to train, Keegan came out himself and met all of my family, and I got to shake his hand and speak to him, and he was just so kind, and he took time with all of us, and he really took care of my cousin as well, who was probably about 5 at the time when she was in the tunnel area too. He was just a top guy, and I mean, I just love the guy anyway, so there's no doubt for me that it has to be Keegan. Just before I go, I'm just going to quickly talk about the takeover situation. Not a lot has changed, but people are getting on edge about the time frame and all that sort of thing. What I would say is, there's lots of reports out there from the trusted journalists saying that this is in order. The process is happening. We just need to be patient with it. Don't worry yet. It might be next week, it might even be the week after, but there's no red flags at the moment, so we just need to keep calm, keep positive, and obviously keep our fingers crossed that it will happen. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you've liked this video, please consider subscribing and hit the like button as well. That'll help me massively. And I will see you really soon, once again, for another video. Thank you very much.